Alrighty, y'all, welcome to Ellis Mowers. This video I have filmed as a follow-up to the original video, which is the two-part series that's running right after that runs right before this video on the channel of this Craftsman LT1000. Long story short, it came back to me because it was having a hot start issue. It would actually cut out when it was warm and end up dying after about 20 minutes or so of running with the blades on. It'd actually run all day without the blades and, you know, driving it around and whatnot, mostly because of the exhaust temperatures. As far as I determined, it was getting too hot, and this video is going to show everything that I did to cure, number one, a hot start issue. Let me rephrase that. To try and cure, number one, a hot start issue, and number two, cutting out while running. I got the cutting out while running fixed. Didn't quite get the hot start issue fixed, but hopefully everything that I do in this video will help you in your journey if you are looking and have the same issue as I've got with this mower, and trying to make it better. So I know it's a little long, bear with me, but it starts right now, right on the other side of my little fancy open. Alrighty, y'all, welcome to Ellis Mowers. What we got going on today, I've got two actually Briggs opposed twins I'm having chronic issues with, and I think it comes down to the fuel I've got in them. So what I think it's doing is one of two things. It's either flooding or it's running too lean. And considering by the fact that usually these Nikki carbs run really lean, I'm going to go with it's running too lean. Let me tell you what it's doing. What it's doing is whenever you turn it on, it's a little hard to start, but your throttle butterfly is down here on your carburetor. This is a brand new carburetor on this this opposed twin Briggs. And so usually what happens is when you pull the butterfly open, the engine speeds up and it rolls on with it, right? This one's not. What it's doing, and what the other one is also doing, after I've put a fuel pump on and did a rebuild kit to them and put a new carb on them, is whenever you pull it up, the thing is choking and it's starving for fuel. Or it's starving for fuel. But what it's doing is it's dumping gas down there, and it won't pick up the throttle because there's too much air going down there to light the fuel. That's at least what I'm thinking is happening. So as a result, what it does is it eventually fouls out the plugs, and it causes a no start situation because the plugs are very dry. And what it does is it sounds like it's running. I mean, like I said, I don't know if it's running rich or running lean. I'm gonna try and figure it out. I got a miniature drill bit set here. But this thing's got a new coil. I have tried 3 coils on it. It's doing the exact same thing. An OEM Briggs coil, a different OEM Briggs coil, and a brand new coil. They're all doing the same thing. They'll run for about 20 minutes, and then they'll start dying and breaking down. New plugs. I've tried everything. So I'm whittling it down to thinking it's a fuel problem. So I've got the main jet here, or excuse me, this is the low side jet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill the low side jet out some. I'm going to drill the main jet out some too, because the main jet supplies everything, including the low side jet. This is the original Briggs carb 692815. It's a 4-screw Nikki. However, what I'm going to do, I've got my set here, my drill bit set. I'm going to start out. It's about 0.0 or 5 thousandths is what I've put down there. 5 thousandths is about what it was doing. I'm going to drill it out to about 8 or 9, just because I want this thing to be getting some gas. Because also what's happening is when I pull the choke on, it's like loping. So even with all these carburetors. So judging by the fact that Nikki's like to run lean, this is what I'm going to do. I've got multiple jets, and so I'm not terribly worried about the jets. I'm going to experiment at this point because the motor is good. The motor runs good when it's getting enough gas, or if it's getting the right amount of gas. Both cylinders I've already checked are firing. They have compression on them. Sucking and blowing, so I know they have compression. Fuel line is in very good shape. It's getting plenty of gas to the fuel pump, and I don't think it's the fuel pump that's causing it, because the fuel pump is pumping like crazy down into the carburetor on all these. So I'm going to drill the main jet out. I've already got the carburetor off. It's just I didn't even have it taken off of the mower. I just took it off. Or it was already off, so I'm going to try this original one first. Your main jet, you take a 3/4 inch plug out there. Your low speed jet's right here that I screwed out. So I'm going to do 8 thousandths on the low speed jet. Put that back in, and then I'm going to see what I can do on the main jet. I might drill it out just slightly to see if I can get a better fuel, getting more fuel to the engine. And if it makes it causes it to run too rich, I've got another set of jets I'll put back in it, and we'll see what we can do if we can get this thing going. So let me go ahead and drill, and I'll meet you all in just a second. Alrighty, y'all, because this thing was simply driving me nuts, I wanted to eliminate the heads as possible issues on them. As you can see, there's a little bit of carbon buildup on them. Nothing insane by any means, though. Just a tad bit of oil on that head. This head's significantly drier, but has more carbon buildup on it. Obviously, carbon. Nothing out of the ordinary. Truthfully, though, nothing out of the ordinary here. What I am going to do is I'm just going to kind of scrape some of the carbon off of these heads. This is a 46 cubic inch as opposed to a 42. One thing I have experimented, because I've got 2 of them over here, and one thing I experimented on this one over here, it's actually a 42 inch, because I experimented reducing the gap on the plugs from 30 thousandths to, I went to 15 thousandths, and I went up to 20 thousandths. And it seems like it's restarting better. It's not great, but it's restarting better than it was. Like I said, I got a brand new coil and stuff on it too. I've just read on a bunch of forums that these things are a bear to restart when warm, even good ones. So what I'm going to do, I've got the plugs here. These are NGKs. They're brand new. I am going to gap them to 20 thousandths, and I'm going to put this thing back together. And the 2 symptoms, I haven't had it running for you, I don't think yet, but the 2 symptoms I've got are whenever you throttle it up, it wants to cut off when it opens the butterfly on the carb. If you throttle it up really quickly. If you throttle it up slowly, it's fine. And then the other thing is, after about 20 to 30 minutes of running, it seems like the spark starts breaking down and the coils go bad. So I don't know if I need to brush off some of this rust on the magnet, which I might do real quick just to hopefully eliminate any and every issue that I could potentially have with this thing. Scrape off some of the magnet rust there, maybe get a better spark. From everything that I'm reading, it's just, these things are just a bear to restart. So that's what I'm going to do. It was really easy to do. There's like 2 5/16 inch bolts holding the tins on each side, which are these. After you take the engine cover off, and everything's clean under here. I haven't had to clean this at all, actually. So, and then it's just 8 head bolts. You just take the head off. It's really easy. These flathead Briggs. So I'm going to put the heads back on after I clean this up a little bit. I think I'm going to throw a little bit of seafoam in the oil too, just to help clean it up some. Maybe just a couple ounces. I'll gap the plugs to 20 thousandths and we'll see if it runs any better. Hopefully it does. Alright, y'all, put the heads back on after I cleaned them out. Just cleaned them out with a wire brush and a drill. Gap these to 20 thousandths. I used a feeler gauge, or you can use a spark plug gapping tool. Actually, I did 15 thousandths. I'll back them up to 20 thousandths if I need to. So, feeler gauge or spark plug gapping tool. I have a feeling this thing will start cold. Battery's charged again. This thing was eating batteries trying to get it restarted sometimes. So, let's see. I'm confident it'll start cold. Let's see how easy it starts cold. Straight off idle. Temperature going. Alright, so this thing is running. I've got two over here. This one that one right there is running in the 500s. This one's running in the 600 to 700 degrees out of the exhaust, which is crazy. Crazy the difference. Again, the gap between the plugs is 15 thousandths on this one. The one I've been working on out there is 20 thousandths. Let's see if it'll restart for us. I'm going to try it out, let it run for a little while, and I'll catch up with y'all in a minute. Alrighty, y'all, let me hear you. Let me let y'all hear it cooling off there. This one, like I said, I've got two out here. This one's running about 200 degrees cooler than this one is at the exhaust, which is crazy. I don't know, because like all the fins and everything look good on this one, so I don't know if this one's designed to run hotter, if I've got the plugs gapped a little bit too narrow and it's running hotter because of that. But it just restarted for me. Let me show you that it'll restart, hopefully. Better. Still popping and skipping. And I wrung out the low side jet on this carburetor too, so I know it's getting plenty of gas, which is good. And I'm not having any issues at all with it surging, as you can hear. Most of the surging is coming from actually the way that I got the plugs gapped, because I've already done that other one over there. I'm going to gap this thing to 20 thousandths, these plugs. I'm going to let it cool down for a little bit, and I'm going to work on that gray one over there. I'll come back and gap these things to 20 thousandths. I'll probably go ahead and put all the tins and the covers and stuff all on it. I do want to cut the grass with it because I want to see if it does what it needs to. The belt, I got to put a belt on this thing because the belt's getting chewed up somehow, some way. I don't know if it's because of the way that the pulleys are on this deck or what, but or it could just simply be an old belt, because the mower that came off of hadn't been used in years. So anyways, that's beside the point. But it's we're getting there, guys. We're getting there. Like I said, this one's running a lot hotter, but I think it's because I got the gap of the plug a little bit less. So let it cool down. I'll catch back up with y'all once it cools down. Okay, y'all. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put this back together. It's restarting on its own still, so which is good. I got the tins and whatnot. I'm going to show you how all these go back on. It's really not that big of a deal, instead of just throwing all this on camera and wasting a bunch of time. Your tins are going to go, your plug wire is going to go on the outside of them. Your tins are going to go inside there. Some people put the fuel line through there as well. It just kind of depends on what you want to do. It's bolted on the side over here by a 2 5/16 inch bolts / screws, whatever. So you just kind of mock them up on each side. Like so, you're supposed to put this tin back into those slots right there too. It's a little difficult, but it's doable. Then obviously 5/16 will knock those back in also. Then you put your red cover on. I know this is very rudimentary, but I just want to show you. The red cover goes inside the tins. Inside the tins. It goes the other direction. Inside the tins, outside on the front and the back. Inside on the sides, outside on the front and the back. And then you'll pop this air filter cover back on. It's very easy. Just it pops on right here, mounts with 3 screws. You put your air filter on, and then fits in these slots. You have 2 wing nuts you put on that, and then you put this cover on top of that, and you have a screw that fits on that. So that's how it all goes together. I'm going to go ahead and put it all together. Also, you have 2 5/16" screws that go right there as well. So I'm going to do all that. We'll see if it'll crank up and run the way that it is. And might test this thing out tonight. We'll see. I got to put a deck belt on it like I mentioned. The deck belt on it's a little wore out, stretched out, and so it's been whittling itself loose. But hey, we'll see if it runs. You know, I've been toying with this thing for weeks, and now I've finally got it to the point where it's running. It'll restart when warm, which was the original issue that I was having with it. It was also killing the battery and all that. So I'll take a little bit crappy running as long as it restarts. I don't know how I can mix the best of both worlds. I know that these 4-screw Nickies are horrible though. Let me do that, and I'll see if it starts with everything on it, because I just tried the gray one over here and it wouldn't. So I'm going to re-gap the plugs down to 15 thousandths like I've got this one. And then, if it restarts and everything, I'll go test it out and do all that good stuff and see if we're good. Hopefully we are. I'm really, really hoping, because these, like I said, these opposed twins are good engines, and I don't want to give up on them, you know. Alrighty, y'all, here's the true test. I've got everything back on it. Let's see if it starts. All right, so it is starting and running. What I'm going to do, I'm gonna pull those plugs out to 20 thousandths, because I'm at 15 thousandths. They're popping a little bit too little of a gap. So I'm going to knock them out to 20 thousandths. I'll let it cool off here for a couple minutes, and we'll give it another start and see if it'll crank back up and run for us at 20 thousandths. I think that cleaning the magnet on the flywheel helped this out a lot too, especially with it being able to restart when warm. I've read a bunch. I've read a ton of stuff, because I've been battling this for a long time, about these things being a pain to restart when warm. So let's just see what happens with it. Hopefully it will behave itself, and we'll see what happens. I'll let it cool. I'll gap it to 20 thousandths. We'll see if it runs any better. Alright, y'all, let me show you. These plugs, they're a little hot, but I don't know if y'all remember seeing them earlier. They were black as black can be. Because I guess it was getting so much fuel and it wasn't being able to ignite it. We're in a lot better shape now. These plugs are a lot cleaner, and I have not even touched them, which is good. They cleaned out themselves on their own, if you know what I mean. I'm going to gap them out to 20 thousandths. We'll see if it runs a little bit better, and we'll see if it starts better still too. Hopefully it does, and if it does, then we'll be in good shape. And we will continue on with fixing the rest of this mower, which I've already done. I've already done videos on this mower, so it's easy just to put a deck belt on one of these. So I'll put a deck belt on it, and we'll be in good shape. And we'll, like I said, we'll continue on with what we're doing here. I'll gap the plugs, we'll crank it up, see how she runs. So I figured while I was at it, I'd go ahead and show you what I do to gap these things. I just have my feeler gauge. I'm going to use my feeler gauge right here. So I used the 15 thousandths earlier. I'm going to go up to 20 thousandths. It seems like 15 thousandths is a little bit too small for these opposed twins. They seem to be pretty content with 20. I think 30 is a little bit too much, just considering the fact that I think it's a little too challenged for the coil since they're firing both plugs at the same time. Alright, neighbor's bringing back the wheelbarrow there, but all I do is take the 20 thousandths and I just kind of wiggle it up into the plug there. It doesn't take much. Sometimes you have to get a pair of pliers and gap them. It just kind of depends on how thick the lead is, but as you can see, I was able to get it in there. And so now we're gapped at 20 thousandths. I'll do that with the other plug too. If I can get my arm straight. This plug's actually already gapped to about 20. So, interesting. Might do that one a little bit more. So they're about the same. Yeah, there we go. That's right at 20 thousandths. It was backfiring earlier, so I'm gonna put these plugs back in and see if it starts well and runs better. Again, it's trial and error. It's trial and error with these things. So just pull the plug back in. Make sure you don't cross thread it. I'll do the other side. You'll know how to put a plug in. We'll see if it runs any better in just a second. Alrighty, y'all, let's see what we got. Listen to the rumble this thing's got on it. how well the camera's picking that up. Wow, that's a world of difference. All I did was clean the flywheel magnet, re-got the plugs to like 20 thousandths. I think it's not 100% right, but it's restarting a lot easier, which is what I am extremely, extremely happy about. I do have to put this hose back in though, for the breather. But after I do that, I think I'm going to throw the hood on it. I'm going to take it for a test mow around the yard, see what we got. Hopefully this thing will run right. Of course, the other issue is the thing was shutting down after about 20 minutes of cutting grass, actually, so under extreme load or under a lot of load. So I want to see if that issue has been resolved, and if so, I'll put a deck belt on this thing and sell it back off again. I'm very pleasantly surprised, and it makes me feel a whole lot better because I've been waiting to find a solution for this thing, and I think I have finally got it. I am so excited. I'm going to put that breather back in. I'm going to put the hood on it. I'm going to take it for a drive and a cut, and I'll come back. We'll see what we got. Alrighty, let me tell you the current situation of this thing. I'm waiting on a deck belt because the one on it finally went out after wear and tear. So until I got a new deck belt on, I can't really test it like I want to. However, when it was running and when I was testing the deck belt, what it would do is it would run, and then you cut it off, let it sit for a couple minutes, try and crank it back up, wouldn't do a thing. Why? I don't know. So my thought is, I'm thinking about taking the fins off, or the little shrouds off the sides here, to see if it'll run cooler. I think I'm going to open up the main jet a little bit more, because I think it's still running a little bit on the lean side from what it sounds like. So I'm going to open up the main jet a little bit more, if ever I find the main jet that I have over here. Open that jet up some and see if it runs any better. Like I said, I've got two jets, so if it doesn't run right, I can always go back to the other jet. But this thing is giving me at a loss. I mean, I'm sure it'll crank up fine this morning. There we go. It'll eventually run itself out of that surging phase, because it's one of them terrible Nikki carburetors. I'm sure that has something to do with it. But I'm going to open up the jet. I'm going to find the jet first off. Open it up, swap them out, and see if that helps matters any. Hopefully it does. Alrighty, I took a micro drill bit set, drilled it out to 13 thousandths, as opposed to, I think it was about 10 thousandths. I don't think it needs much. I just think it needs a little bit. So I've drilled it out some. Hopefully that will, I mean, if it doesn't work, then, I mean, I've got a perfectly fine jet inside it already, so I'm not terribly worried about it. It's nice to have a little rebuild kit. Like I said, the rebuild kits are not that expensive. I think they're about $5. It came with actually the fuel pump and all that good stuff, so I know the fuel pump's working good. I'm just going to take this off and the air filter cover and stuff. I don't think I'm going to be able to get the jet screwed in there without taking at least the top part of the carburetor off. So once I get to that point, I'll rejoin y'all and we'll finish it off here. Alright, I have that opened up jet in. I forgot to film it, I'm sorry. But you don't have to take the entire carburetor off. You can just take these 4 screws off right here after you get the air filter cover and stuff off, which is pretty self-explanatory. And then you can also take this 3/4 inch plug out. When you take that plug out, it'll expose the jet. You can stick a flathead screwdriver in and unscrew the jet. Now I'll take the top of this off because whenever you put the jet back in, I get some needle nose pliers and feed the jet down there. Because it's a brass jet, it's not gonna, a magnetic tip of a screwdriver isn't gonna make it any better. And I'll get it in place and then push it in with a screwdriver and screw it back in. So that's why I take the top of the carburetor off. So I don't know if this thing's going to flood out or what, but I've opened it up a couple of thousandths. So hopefully what it's going to do is run better. We'll find out. I know these carbs are designed to run lean, so I'm trying to open them up some. It will take a couple seconds for the fuel to get into the carburetor, but it should crank after that. That's much better because it wouldn't even do this before. I'm going to get it outside and let it run for a little bit. We'll check the exhaust temperatures. Alrighty y'all, I'm away from the mower a little bit just so y'all can hear me. Remember the last time we checked this, these things were running in the 700s. Well, let me show you what they're running now. Down almost 300 degrees. This thing is running so cool at the intake, it's sweating. so cool the intake is sweating. That's crazy. I'm tempted to open that thing up to about 14 thousandths, but I don't want to go too far. So the real test is I'm going to wait about 5 minutes, see if I can crank it back up. And if it does, then we're in good shape. I'm pleasantly surprised at how well this is going. Like I said, the intake is so cold it is actually sweating or condensating. It's not sweating because it's cold, it's condensating. Right there on the intake too, which is good. Like I said, the exhausts are running. Let's see what the heads are. I mean, it's cool right here at the, like it's cool to the touch right there. And at the cooling fins on the back, looks like it's about 130 some degrees. At the exhaust, it's cooling down now, but like I said, it wasn't running over about 430, really 450 degrees. It really wasn't running any higher than that. So I'm tempted, man, I'm tempted to knock that thing out to 14 thousandths just to see what happens, you know. If I feel like we finally made some good progress on it. I'm going to let it sit for about 5 minutes and then I'm going to crank it back up and see what happens. I'll let y'all know what happens. Alright, y'all, I think we got this thing sorted. Like I said, I think just the deck belt is what all I got to do to it now. I got to test it like that to see if it'll, you know, start and restart and all that when it's under maximum load with the trans working and the deck spinning. But it's running in the mid to high 400s at the exhaust, which is about 250 degrees cooler than it was. It's set for an hour. Let me see if I can start it up without even having to choke it. Awesome. I could never do that before. Never do that before. Got a nice rumble to it too. Idle's good. Let's see if it'll roll back up for us. Oh yeah, there's a little delayed, but it's still kind of... It's also a little low on fuel, so starter's a little weak, but I tell you what, I think all that's left to do is to try it again to see if I can get it restarted after letting it sit for about 5 minutes after I cut the yard. And so when I get to that point, I'll let you know and we'll test it out. Alright, well, I finally got this thing wrapped up as much as I'm going to wrap it up. What I ended up also having to do to it is I actually had this lawnmower, a buyer coming to look at this lawnmower, and came and looked at it, and no joke, when I cranked it, it did 2 rounds and the starter went out on it. So I've got a new starter in it, and that should be the final straw for this lawnmower. Not the final straw in a bad way, but the final straw that's going to help it. because that other starter was slow and it was probably not turning the mower fast or the engine fast enough. Even though I still believe that it is getting a little bit heat soaked whenever it runs with the blades on for a while. So I'm gonna grab the tripod for you, and I'm gonna crank it up, let y'all hear it. It's a cold start. I started it for the first time in about a week earlier today, and it worked great. Cranked right up for us. Very strong running 10 too. Now that I got the jets opened up, it sounds really good too. Yeah, I'll leave it. Almost cranked up right there. Hear the blades real quick. That thing runs real good. It runs real good on low throttle. You're not supposed to run these on low throttle very much though. But the lawnmower overall turned out nice. Let me go through everything that I did if I can even remember. Apart from the new starter, I cleaned the engine with a new battery, put a different fuel filter on it. Fuel filter that is supposed to go on this. I had a different type on it here. Like I said, cleaned the fins, cleaned the heads, put a new air filter on it, cleaned out the carburetor, put a brand new carb kit in it, new fuel pump, and drilled out the jets. Let me tell you that drilling out the jets made this thing run about 200 degrees cooler. I don't think I've emphasized that enough here. It's going to run a little bit richer and use a little bit more fuel, but it solved half of my problem, and it made the other half a lot better. It solved the issue of me of it cutting out and dying because it was overheating and making getting the coil too hot, and it was shorting out the coil and causing the spark to deaden. So that was the big cure to the issue, but all the other stuff definitely helped it out. So I'm sorry if this video is lengthy, and I know I'm going to title it, I'm basically going to title it, It's Not Fixed, but everything that I did to try and cure a hot start issue on a Briggs opposed twin. So I've got this mower listed. I have disclosed that it may not start when it is warm after you've been cutting for a while, unless you let it sit for 20 to 30 minutes. Like I said, I've done everything in my power, and I want to make this video kind of a forum as to what else can you possibly do to make these things run to where they'll restart better. Because I've looked on forums and done a ton of research and couldn't really find any definitive answer as to solving the issue. And again, these engines are close to 20 years old, so some of them are over 20. Even the youngest ones are almost 20. So, but yeah, so that's what I'm going to title this as. And we're going to end that one there. That one's listed for $400. I'd usually sell them for $500. This one I've had to do other things too, and so I'm not really going to get into that. But I'm still having a little bit of issue with it running, but I've had a couple of other issues with it as well. I think I need to re-gap the plugs or something along those lines on that gray one. But this green one, what I described, everything I did in this video, helped it out a lot. So I hope this helps you out a lot if you've got one of these that are overheating or not starting when warm. Because I tell you one thing, this is some lawnmowers, or you just kind of throw parts on it, you know what it needs. This was a nice little challenge for me. I enjoyed the challenge. I'm glad to see it go, though. Glad to see it go. This is the second time this lawnmower is going, and it's going to be a follow-up to the video of when I originally sold it the first time. So I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll catch y'all on the next video. In the meantime, you can catch me at Ellis Mowers 09 on Instagram and Facebook. I've got new uploads here on YouTube Wednesday and Sunday at 8 p.m. And I'll see you on the next video.